Maps of hybrid attacks on critical infrastructure during the conflict Israel, US, Iran. We begin this review with maps the infrastructure, conflicts, and hybrid attacks in the Middle East by examining a sequence of diagrams, maps, photos, and reports that started on February 28 of this year and have continued until today. In this compilation, we have used some maps and graphics generated by artificial intelligence, as well as others we have sources from various providers. We always try to credit the source, and when we post this as a video, we will share the links to the reference we use. As you know, for several months, we have been discovering and organizing data regarding events that impact critical infrastructure in both languages. We have been sharing updates on the different parts in conflict, including the war between Ukraine and Russia. On other occasions, we have also discussed the Taiwan Strait, where we have seen the conflict between mainland China and the small island of Taiwan, observing how that area has become a zone of tension. Obviously, in this graphic, we have expanded to include the Caribbean zone, where there has been a significant concentration of naval forces, airplanes, and soldiers to protect the Caribbean Sea from drug trafficking, as well as the intervention in Venezuela related to the capture of the dictator Maduro. We are waiting to see what are the next steps in this area. In the case of the Middle East, we have been monitoring the Israel and Gaza area during the war, observing how cyber attacks have reached there. We have already discussed this. In today's conflict on the Middle East, we have been focusing on the conflict involving Israel, the United States, and Iran. We have expanded our videos, our maps, to these areas in both English and Spanish, some of which we have shared in this course and others we participate in. All of this started with our interest in satellite captures from Google Maps and the geolocation of these areas, with the goal of turning them into reference material for our courses as students. For cybersecurity and digital forensics, we are also preparing a presentation for a conference. You can support this research by answering our survey. We want to see how these educational resources, maps, pictures, and videos are useful to improve our courses. We would like to visualize where the situation stands, since cybersecurity and cyber warfare in conflicts are based in what we now call invisible weapons. We don't see them, they exist in the electromagnetic spectrum, but we know how these invisible weapons are capable of affecting our critical infrastructure in energy, food, health, water, etc. As we will see through this Google Maps layer that we share with our students, it helps us to update conflicts that we don't have yet very well documented. Here you can see the area around the Panama Canal that is marked in red, and now the Strait of Hormuz that is on the main screen of our lives. We have seen real-world attacks. We are now combining this with cyber attacks to call them hybrid attacks, where both are happening practically at the same time in the same places. As we can see, this is the location where a vast amount of oil and natural resources, natural gas, go through. As we analyze how critical infrastructure is impacted, we have to use forensic tools to investigate the impact of ship destructions, pipeline breaches, and threats to ports, airports, power plants, and oil facilities. These graphics I'm showing you briefly tell us where the oil and natural gas go from the Strait of Hormuz toward Europe and Asia. We don't go too much into detail here, but you can read what happened if the Strait of Hormuz is paralyzed, something that has been happening for several days in the region. We can see the oil fields from the Caspian Sea north of Iran and the Persian Gulf to the exit toward the Indian Ocean. We also monitor maritime traffic with new tools that allow us to see ships' locations. We have done the same with airplanes. Many reports discuss air traffic and its routing. That is part of our analysis, seeing how maritime and air traffic are impacted, similar to when the Suez Canal, was blocked by a ship a few years ago. This is the reason we have to study the consequence of a canal closure. In the graphic on the right, we can see alternative. We always have to look for lessons learned in this kind of analysis. What we can do to be impacted? In this map, we can see how those in the region are looking for alternative transport routes outside the Persian Gulf without passing through the Strait of Hormuz. Another similar graphic shows the oil routes. We have been already showing this in our Facebook pages, but here they look cleaner since we are focusing only on the maps and their content. Television news has been very intense lately related to the presentation of the news and fake news, which we also have to analyze when doing a forensic study. What are the real sources? What is the origin of the information? This is especially tricky now with the artificial intelligence. In many opportunities, we have created our own maps with the information we collect. In this case, we're talking about the cyber attacks between 2022 and 2025 on critical infrastructure in Europe. Here you cannot see the interactive features, but when you click one of these points, you can see what it is. An attack to a power plant, a water plant, a hospital, a treatment plant, etc. This is an example how we use digital tools and artificial intelligence to visualize attacks. These are the initial cyber attacks on infrastructure that we start to see when this war started. We asked for the creation of a map with verified sources, but we found out that some of them have errors that we need to extra verify. We are sharing this for educational purposes. This kind of map are very rare in the news because normally they focus on real missiles attacks, bomb attacks that are more related to current news. But in our case, we are interested in focusing more on graphics related to cybersecurity. This is a March 5th map just as the conflict was beginning. During those days, we saw that television also showed Iran attacking other Arab countries, and we began to look at the cyber attacks they were launching. We put out a video that we shared in class last week showing all the invisible weapons impacting the conflict. The articles and resources from the last session were in English since we have students in various institutions and we are leveraging production tools to create this content. we started to improve our prompts to get maps with more realistic information and sharper colors. This slide is very useful to explain the different types of attacks. It allows us to compare them with original graphics from sites like SOC, Radar, or NetBlocks. In some cases, we have seen some graphics that are not real because we don't know the source, what we are still investigating. But it's useful for educational purpose, see how to use these resources. We also see cyber activity in Latin America, Central America, and Asia that help on this kind of analysis. We made an integration map to know what's going on today. What are the most important events? But the key is not the map itself, but the references that tell us which groups are carrying out the attacks. Last week, we mentioned the ambiguity of knowing if an attack was real or not, and this is the difficult part of investigating these resources. This brings us to our last map, where we simplify and highlight the most important point of each area. We're still investigating confirmation and verification, but we included all countries involved in the Middle East cyber attacks. We are also looking at attacks coming from Iran to the United States because we want to see how deep they want to go in this conflict, and we're going to be checking these water utilities in Texas and other states. We want to verify and review it. We also see that we are able to identify a series of Internet of Things cyber attacks that we have mentioned several times. Today, we also saw in the news the cyber attack to the port of Vigo in Spain and several gas stations. Finally, this is another area of concerns, the ballistic range. Before this conflict, it was said that Iran have a range of 2,000 kilometers for their ballistic missiles. Now we can see that they can reach a range of 4,000 kilometers after having an attack on Diego Garcia Island in the middle of the Indian Ocean. This is another area of concern, as these missiles can reach Europe. We have to see how this could affect critical infrastructure within our continent, including a considerable part of Spain. We will continue looking at this in future videos. We also added this graphic to say, look, we need to keep an eye on this, because while it is said that Iran doesn't have atomic weapons, here we have a graphic of the graphics that are supposed to have them. With this, we finish this brief tour of the cyber attacks occurring during these 4 weeks of war between the US, Israel, and Iran. From here on, we will also position our interactive map as a point of interest for all of you.